right, are you ready for your headliner for tonight? Not only has he been in awesome films like the movie Clerks, but he was also murking people in Fortnite in the green room. Please put your hands together for Jason Mewes! What the fuck, man? You guys, you know I've been trying. I've done like, I don't know, 40 shows now, 50 shows, and I come out to that song every time and hope that the audience is all singing with me, because if they do, which it's only been 4 venues out of 50, have sang along, it's amazing, but if they don't, it doesn't work, as you can see. So, I tried. So I've been thinking about changing the song and coming out to, ooh, my fuck man. But then I have to run from there, my dick fucking tucked, and then it might fall out and shit, and then someone might touch. See, right here I'm behind stage, a lot of venues, you gotta run from like the aisle and shit, and people will high five me on the way, and I'm always worried my dick will fall out, and I'm like... So, I've opted not to come out to that song. But anyway, I keep trying with that song, but I appreciate it. I've been trying to still shape this show. I know I was here almost a year ago. Yeah, were you here? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming back to hear me talk about my asshole and balls again. But I've been trying to shape the show, come up with the opening song, and I also really want to play a game. I don't know if anyone listens to Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. If you haven't seen it, but you heard it, or if you've seen it, we play a game called Let Us Fuck. And we come up with sex positions. Kevin always says on the audio, you don't get to see it, but he says, we don't do normal positions like missionary or doggy. We'll do stuff like the Ewok cock block. So people have been wondering what the Ewok cock block is. I've been showing people because I'm like, oh, well, I'm there. And a lot of people are like, hey, I've heard it, but I've never seen it. So here it is. Waka waka! Waka waka! So that's the Ewok cock block. So, but I want to steal the game. It's actually awesome because, again, we usually bring 3 audience members up. And then we come up with different positions and people don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And I was in Nashville about 3 weeks ago and some girl came up and she's like, we fucked. I was like, what? And I thought I had been in Nashville for 2 months, like 15 years ago, strung out on crack and heroin. I really did. So the whole like 2 months is like a fog. And I was like, maybe we really had sex. And her husband's here. This is awkward. But then she was like, we did the pothole pounder. And I was like, we did Let Us Fuck. She's like, yes. So then I was like, fuck yeah. So that's why my point is that it's awesome that like people remember like this weird thing, like they fucked me and did the pothole pounder and you want cock block. So I'm like, oh, I want to bring a game to this show so that people can be like, oh my God, we did this. So one of the games I've come up with, and I don't think it's going to work out, so I've decided not to do it, but it's called Fuck Mewes' Face. Right? And someone comes up with a name, like the Jawbreaker, and a dude slaps his dick on my jaw and shit. But I thought that'd be weird, because it'd be dick on my face, people could get offended and stuff. So, you know, I'm not going to do that one. Another one I came up with was anal Mewes toss, where I fucking grab the stool, I just fucking bear it, and you guys throw ice cubes in my asshole. And if I catch one, I gotta walk across the stage with it. And if I drop it, I gotta pick it up and put it in my mouth. See, which is really gross, so I decided not to do that game either. This girl came up with a really good game. She said, maybe you can come out with where you won't be too offensive, come out with a strap-on dick, give everyone rings and they can throw rings on the strap on. I was like, that's actually a really good idea. So I've been thinking about that, but it was funny, I was in Spencer's like a week later, and in Spencer's they have the sex section, and they had one of those hats with a dick on it, and you pull the string, and it's like, so I was like, maybe I can use that instead, and I gotta sit here and try to fucking catch the rings, but then I might get hit in the face and shit, so. I know, I'm still trying to figure out a game. I really do want to come up with something because I think it'd be fun to bring people up and do that. So I do want to mention that, I always forget to do this. Let's thank the two awesome comedians that came up before me. I like that most venues have comedians before me because I like it because I'm sure there's a few people here who are like, hey, let's go watch a comedy show tonight. And they're walk-ups. They have no idea who the fuck I am. And I tell stories. That's why it's called Amusing Stories. So I've been lucky. I've only had one couple, like, it was their anniversary, and they're like, walked out halfway through, and they're like, what the fuck is this? Because there was no openers. And I just told my stories the whole time, and most people dig it, but they were like, what the hell? So I'm saying is I think they're super funny, they warm up the crowd, but also you guys get to see some real stand-up comedy, and now you get to listen to me talk about my fucking bleached asshole and stuff. So. I appreciate you guys coming out, I really do. It's a pretty full house here, I don't know how many tickets wound up being, but I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I was talking to Kevin today. He just got back from London with Ralph Garman, and I was just telling him, I told him I was leaving, and he asked how it was going. I said, dude, I really like it. I like going out myself. I don't have to, Jay and Bob Get Old was awesome because it was Kevin and I getting to travel all over, we're together. But I felt like there's a lot of pressure because there was segments, and if things seemed slower, Kevin would get bummed out. There was just more things that I had to make sure were good. But my biggest fear when I started doing this was like, oh my God, I'm not going under the Jay and Silent Bob title, and I'm not with Kevin Smith, so it's just going to be Jay Mewes, and I was worried like people might not come out. So thank goodness, knock on stools and stuff. Most venues have been pretty good. I don't know, it's not an ego thing, but anyone, I think it'll feel bad if I came out and it's just like, the 4 people right here and shit who I can see right now are like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'm like, my asshole and balls, And that's it. It's the 4 of them, and they leave and they're like, what the fuck was that? So I appreciate you guys. This isn't something I planned coming out doing this. It was movies. I didn't plan on doing, stand-up or podcasting, traveling, and all that stuff. I was roofing and stuff, but I met Kevin, and now I stream. So if you get bored, you want to watch me stream. It's funny, they came in, I felt like an asshole because they were trying to ask me stuff, but I was in the middle of a game of Fortnite, if you know what Fortnite is. It's amazing. And right now, because the new John Wick movie's coming out, they have a John Wick. It's called like Wick's Bounty or whatever, and you gotta try to like get gold coins, and if you can win the game, you get like a special John Wick backpack and shit. So they came in, the manager and the opener, and he's like, hey, what song you want to come out to? And I was like, hold on! So I felt like an asshole. But anyway, I've been streaming that on Facebook, and that's been awesome. It's like a dream come true. I get to play Fortnite video games and get paid on Facebook. So that's been really awesome, and I don't have to leave. So I get to be in the Pro-Am, which is a really big deal. I don't know if anyone saw that on Instagram. They had 50 athletes, musicians, entertainers, or whatever, and then 50 pro gamers. And whoever wins gets $1 million to donate to a charity and shit. So I get to go do that in like a month. So I'm super stoked. Thank you. But like I said, I didn't plan on doing this. I grew up in a small town in Hines, and me and Kevin grew up together. When we first, even though we didn't know each other, you knew everybody. You knew it was like, there's the Hartsgroves, there's the Johnsons, there's the Smiths. And it's funny because Kevin always says he knew me as like the troublemaker kid. He's like, there's that Jay Mewes kid, he threw a rock through the pharmacy window. Ooh, there's that Jay Mewes kid, he got caught jerking off behind the post office. There's Jay Mewes, he fucking put peanut butter in his ass and let a cat lick it off. Which never happened. But and that's how he knew me, as like a little troublemaker kid in town. And he was, I knew him from school. He was a senior, I was a freshman when I got into high school. So we didn't hang out or anything, but he did talent shows in our school, and he was super funny. And I knew him as the dude who wrote really funny sketch comedy and stuff for the talent shows. When he graduated, he started working at the community center in our town. Excuse me. Where Brian Johnson and Walt Flanagan worked. If you guys watch Comic Book Man or Telling Steve Dave. So that's where they all worked and shit. And I used to go there. I was about 13. They were 17, 18, whatever. I was 13 or 14. And you go there after school until your family gets off of work and they pick you up and they had foosball and pool table and board games and snacks and shit. And they had supervision, sort of, because Walt and Brian and Kev were the supervision and they were fucking sitting in the corner and be like talking to each other, laughing it up. And I remember one day going there and being like, man, what are you guys doing, man? They're like, get out of here, kid. We're doing man shit. And I'm like, whoa, man, well, let me be part of that shit. What are you doing? They're like, we're reading comics, motherfucker. And I'm being like, all right, I want to be part of that comic shit. And they're like, no way, get out of here. And I kept bugging them, and they wanted me to leave them alone, so they gave me like 10 free comic books. Excuse me, I remember leaving and reading all the comics and fucking being like, oh my God, fucking this is awesome. And I fell in love with comics. And I came back and shit, and they would always sit in the corner and they'd be reading comics and talking about movies and giggling and laughing and shit like that. And I just wanted to be part of it, even though they were a lot older than me. And I knew Brian a little bit. And I was like, man, what are you guys? Let me hang out. They're like, get out of here, man. I'm like, come on, let me just get a few more comics. They're like, first taste is free, motherfucker. You gotta earn the rest. I'm like, all right, what do I gotta do? They're like, we'll play you in foosball. If you win, we'll give you 20 comic books. But if you lose, you gotta wear that t-shirt for a week. And I had the worst fucking clothes ever. I lived with my grandma, she didn't have a lot of money and shit. So she'd go to Bradley's Kmart and buy the weakest clothes. Like the shirt that I had to wear for a week, it was fucking like cut off sleeves, like V-neck, and there was a dog on the front that said Sportstown. And he had a tennis racket and a fucking football and a soccer ball and shit. It was the word Sportstown. And I lost, we played foosball, I lost. I'm like, oh fuck, come on, man. Double or nothing. And they're like, all right, listen, if you lose, you gotta wear your fucking tighty whities on the outside of your pants. And I was like, oh man, I don't know why, like fucking after that fucking week of lose, because I lost, of course. After a week of wearing almost a week of wearing tighty whities on the outside of my underwear, I should have known then not to wear tighty whities. I don't know why it took me years to figure out. It doesn't matter if you have a bidet, fucking flushable baby wipes, whatever. At the end of the day, if you're wearing white fruit balloons, there's gonna be a streak of fucking shit in there. No matter what. And for some reason, I decided to wear them for years. And I remember wearing them on the outside. I lost that shirt. After about 4 days, they're like, "Can you please take those clothes off?" And Kevin didn't really like me, and at that point, like, Brian and Walt started warming up to like, man, this kid's really weird. He says shit like snoochie boochies and does weird stuff. And Kevin's like, he ain't funny, man. I'm the fucking funny one. I write funny shit. I'm funny. He's not. And so he didn't really want to hang out. And I remember they were going to a comic book convention in New York. It was a New York comic book convention that was in a church basement, and it was like every 6 months. And I remember Brian was like, you could totally come with us. I was like, thank you, dude. I've never been to a comic book convention. I can't believe it. It's going to be awesome. And Kevin was supposed to drive his car, and he was driving those two guys up. And Brian's like, hey, I invited Jay to go. And he's like, I'm not fucking bringing a minor over state line. And Brian's like, just come on, dude. The kid fucking is excited. He's like, I'm not driving him over the state line. I don't fucking like him. He's not funny. And he's like, come on. He's like, you know what? Well, fuck you. I'll drive. And then Kevin hated me even more because then Brian drove. And usually if Brian drove, if Kevin wasn't driving, Kevin would sit in the front seat and Walt would always sit in the back for whatever reason. But when Brian's like, I'll pick you up at the community center, Kevin and Walt at the community center, Brian pulls up, I'm like, shotgun! And I fucking jump in the front seat. And he's like, this motherfucker. And on the way up, Brian and Walt's like giggling at me a little bit and shit, because you know like 18-wheelers have those awesome horns and shit. I'm like out the window like, rah, rah. I'm like fucking trying to get him to honk their horn. I put my ass out the window, doing stupid shit. And Brian and Walt's laughing and Kevin's like, you ain't too fucking funny and shit. And I would do weird shit like, dude, they'd be talking about a movie coming out and I'd be like, ow, ow, and they'd like, what, my lap and shit. They'd look over, my balls would be out and shit. And Kevin just didn't think it was funny. And then finally we get to the convention, and they knew all the vendors. I was collecting this 50 issues of this comic book series, Vigilante. And I needed like 9 more issues to complete it and shit, but I had like $20 on it. And I was like, man, I hope they have issues of Vigilante and stuff. And they're like, dude, the vendors, this one vendor has so many back issues, and this other vendor has tons of awesome statues and all sorts of shit. And they couldn't remember anyone's name, so they're like, look, go to Cha-Ching's booth. And I'm like, what, Cha-Ching? And they're like, yeah, and the reason they called him Cha-Ching is because he used to wear one of those chain belts, like quarters, dimes, nickels. And then they're like, if he doesn't have it, then Blotchy has it. And they call this dude Blotchy because he had blotches all over his neck, like red blotches behind his ears and his arms and shit. And they couldn't remember his name. So we get there and shit, and I go to Cha-Ching's booth, and he has all 9 issues I need and shit, but it's $50. And I run over, I'm like, dude, I can't believe it, man, they got all the issues. I'm like, fucking, what am I gonna do? I only have $20. They're like, look, that's the awesome thing about cons. They'll fucking barter with you. I said, get out of here. I said, what do I do? And they're like, look, just go up there, you put the comics on the table, and you put your money on there and say, that's all I have. And I was like, all right, well, then what do I do if he says no? He goes, well, then you get under the table and you open your mouth. And I'm like, what? And so Kevin used to fuck with me all the time because he didn't like me and bust my balls, and he thought I was gonna be like, dude, fuck that shit. But instead, this is where he said he started warming up on me a little bit. It's because I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. And then he puts it in my mouth and he's like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And then I'm like, oh shit, the Blotchy comes over and he has this big Blotchy penis and he's like slapping me in the ass with it. He's like, here's a Spider-Man annual #2, motherfucker. And so I went along with it, and Kevin was like, oh, he's not so bad. But the funny thing is, the whole way home, like these guys, when they go on something, they just keep going with the scenario. They're like, by the end of the fucking trip, they're like, oh, and then you're lined up, and all the vendors are lined up, and you're fucking sucking like a circus scene on your head. And I was like, all right. So anyway, we dropped Kevin off at his house. Now, we knew each other, knew of each other. We didn't know each other, and I didn't know where he lived. But he lived literally like 2 blocks from me, and so now I knew where he lived. And I remember like a week goes by, and I come over and knock on the door and shit. I'm like, dude, what are we doing today? He's like, bro, we're not fucking friends, man. Get out of here. And I'm like, come on, man. He's like, dude, I'm busy today. And then like a week goes by, 10 days, I go over again. He's like, dude, I'm busy. And at this point, like time's passed. I keep going by every once in a while trying to hang out and shit. And the community center, he stops working at the community center, and so does Brian Johnson, and they start working at the Quick Stop in RST Video, where clothes and shop. Yes. So he's working there, Brian's working RST Video and shit. And I remember going to his house one Saturday, and I'm like, fuck, like I just keep trying and shit. I don't know, for some reason it was really, Kevin and Brian were really appealing to me because they would read comics, talk about movies, talk about writers and directors and shit, and they would talk about girls. Like again, at this point I'm like 14 and shit. At this point I've never even seen a vagina, but I'd like, oh, and then that vagina would be right here, and I'd be touching it, I'd be kissing it, I'd be touching the boobies and shit, and they'd be like, well, have you ever even had sex? I'm like, well, no, but and then I'm touching it, I'm feeling it, And so, but they had real experiences where me and my friends, which was fun, but we would go to the woods and build forts and rope swings and shit like that. Build our bicycles and go-karts, shoot BB guns and all that. These guys would like talk about women and comic books and movies and all this shit. So Kevin was really appealing is my point, so I kept trying to hang out. And I remember one Saturday I come over and shit, and I'm like, hey dude, what are we doing? He's like, look bro, I'm going on a date tonight and shit. He goes, but guess what, man, let's hang out tomorrow. I'm like, really? All right, dude, Sunday, I'll be fucking ready. He's like, I'll pick you up at 5:30 at your house. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. I'll have my Sunday best on, bro. I'm gonna be ready to go. 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. He's like, no, 5:30 a.m. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, dude, you're gonna come help me at the store, put the papers together. So on Sundays, Kevin had to put together the Sunday Asbury Park Press, which was a newspaper, and it was like the entertainment section, coupons, whatever. There's like the fucking real estate and all these different sections to make this big Sunday paper, and it had to be ready by like 6:30 when the Quick Stop doors opened. And Brian and Walt would always be like, fuck that, we're not waking up at fucking 5:30 on a Sunday. And he's like, look, dude, I'll pick you up, we're gonna hang out. And he's like, and I'm gonna give you $5 and you can have free snacks. I was like, I'm in, bitch. So he picks me up and we go to the Quick Stop and we put the papers together. Afterwards, I fucking have a couple Twinkies and a Yoo-hoo and shit. And then we start watching Silver Spoons and he introduces me to Degrassi. So this is where I started learning about Degrassi, which is awesome because Kevin told us his perspective of that story of us, like me coming to help him on Sundays. And he talked about Degrassi, and years later, the people who created Degrassi heard that we liked it, and they invited us to be part of Degrassi. So Jay and Bob got to be on a couple episodes of Degrassi, and then years and years later, we got to be in a Drake video. Which was awesome. So again, all these things that I didn't plan on happening and shit, it was really awesome. But so then we're watching this, and I wind up having a good time. He starts warming up more to me and stuff. You know, next Sunday I help him, the Sunday after, and I start going almost every Sunday and helping him out. We chit chat, we talk about comics and all this stuff. Now months and months and months and years pass, whatever, and he starts talking about making a movie. He's like, all right, dude, I sort of see why these guys think you're funny. Like, you have this weird sense of humor, but I wonder if other people would find you funny. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, I want to put you in a movie. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I remember him just thinking he just was saying that because, again, back then it wasn't like there was Kickstarter or YouTube or Netflix and shit, and there was no like cameras like a GoPro or 7D. And like now if someone's like, hey, I want to make a movie and I got $5,000, I'm going to make a movie, you can make a movie with fucking, you know, iMovie and everything. But back then, it was like literally like the VHS fucking shoulder camera and shit. Like, I would be like, Uncle Bob's coming over to film Thanksgiving and shit. He had the big shoulder camera. You know, like that was the only camera out. So when he said he was going to make a movie and shit, I was like, yeah, sure. And I remember like a few weeks passed and shit. And he's like, all right, dude, I'm done. I wrote this character. It's for you. Read the J character. We're going to start rehearsing in a couple weeks. And I remember going home, and it took like a week to read because I was like, I want to read the script. Ooh, Spider-Man. So finally I get through it. I remember when I got done, I'm like, bro, dude, I don't know if I can do this. He's like, well, what do you mean you can't do it? I was like, dude, I don't know, like, who plays this J character? Like, who says this? I don't know if I can do this. He's like, you motherfucker! You say Snoochie Boochies and I'll fuck anything that moves. I'm like, all right, you're just right. But it was real weird because I remember like reading it on paper, it seemed weird, and then all of a sudden it cuts and we start shooting, and the camera's on me, and fucking for the first couple days was so hard for me to get through because he'd be like, action, I'd be like, snooch to the nose. Matter of fact, if you watch Clerks, if you've seen Clerks recently, or next time you watch it, and you know the scene where I'm like, oh, sing Berserker, girls think sexy. You know, it cuts to me saying that, and it cuts to him like, oh yeah, you know, Berserker. And then it cuts back to us, and instead of it cutting back to me and Kevin, it cuts back to our feet doing this. And it's the weirdest thing, and I remember fucking after a few years and a couple times watching, I'm like, Kev, why did you cut to our feet? And he's like, dude, don't you remember when the camera was on you for that scene, I kept trying to get you to be like, Olaf, sing Berserker. But instead I was like, Olaf, sing Berserker. Girls think sexy. Because I was super nervous. It was so weird for me to be on camera. Even though I said
that was one of the best scenes.
Now when he was like, say this, do this, be funny. It was super weird. Kevin gives a great example. He said he remembers one day he was at the community center, him and Brian walked in the library, and the door was shut and stuff. It was the only room with the door shut in the whole community center. And they were in there bagging and boarding their new comic books. And they said all of a sudden the door kicked in and shit. And I came in running in. I didn't even look at him. And I grabbed the stapler and I'm like, oh. And I grabbed the flagpole and I'm like, oh. And I fucking grabbed a pencil and this. And then I got to this asteroid machine. I'm like, and then I fucking just ran off and never looked or said anything to him and ran out and slammed the door shut. And it said, I barely remember that, but he said he remembers like, hey man, you just did all this weird shit for yourself. You weren't entertaining us because you didn't even look at us or see if we were looking and laughing. And I realized like when I would do weird shit, like if I pulled my balls out right now, I know these two right here are gonna be like, this motherfucker, or they're gonna be like, ooh, look at this motherfucker, or they're gonna do whatever. But whatever the case is, my balls are out. I think it's funny. And that's how I feel like I did. We do all this weird shit, but now the camera's on me and it's like, be funny, say this, do this. And it was so weird. We finally get through it and shit. I figured out, after like 3 days of trying, I figured out a nice pint of blackberry brandy and a couple doobies and shit would fucking ease me up, lube me up, make me not be so nervous. Except for a few times I like passed out that part where I'm like, no, it's not, smoking weed. Back around, my good man, time to get back, drink some beers and smoke. It took me 3 days to get through that because the first day, like, I drank so much I passed out, and I fucking couldn't wake up, and when I did wake up, I was like, and the couple days later, I came back, we shot some stuff, and then there was lunch and a break and shit, and I drank too much again, so I was slurring my words. So the third night, Kevin's like, look, bro, you can drink, but just a little bit, because we gotta fucking shoot this scene. So we finally got through it and shit. So we get through the movie, and I go back to work roofing and shit. I didn't plan on doing any of this. I didn't know, even after that, it wasn't like I was like, we just made a movie and this shit's gonna change my life. It was like, look, I'm gonna go back to roofing because he's gonna go edit it and we're gonna all watch it, it'll be fun. I didn't realize that he could go, he was gonna edit it, put music in it, and then try to go to film festivals and hope someone will buy it. And then it could be out on like real screens where people will see it. And that's what happened. But even after that, I remember like, he's like, dude, we had like a little party. And he's like, bro, the movie's gonna be on like 100 screens or whatever it was. He's like, people are gonna see it. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And I went back to work and shit. I didn't really like even think about it. And it wasn't until Mallrats that I was like, holy fuck, I remember he's like, look, dude, I got a 3-picture deal. I got 3 movies I'm writing, and the next one's Mallrats, and I'm writing our characters in it again. I was like, fuck yeah. And then when we were on that movie, I got offered when we were done to go to an independent movie called Drawing Flies in Canada. And that's sort of when I was like, shit, man, maybe this is something I can do. And even after that, though, I still had to go home and work. I delivered pizza. I delivered pizza when I got home. Ooh, excuse me, that Red Bull. And then I fucking would also help my buddy doing tiling and shit. And I didn't stop working like delivering pizza and construction and stuff till Dogma. So again, long story short, I mention all this because again, this is so surreal to me. I got to work with Chris Rock, fucking, Luke Skywalker, fucking Princess Leia. Mark Hamill, all these people, like Stan Lee, like Mallrats, we got to meet Stan Lee, which again, I said, that's sort of like what got me in and starting to hang out with Brian and Walt and Kev, was me being like, what are you guys doing, comics? And then us going to this comic book convention and stuff, and then I got to meet Stan Lee, which blew my mind. So I really, really, really appreciate everyone for being here tonight. Thank you. So, speaking of the cameras, so the VHS cameras, I remember the first affordable camera that came out that like some kids, teenagers could buy, get, or whatever, was this Panasonic camera my buddy got for his birthday. My buddy that was my age. He got, for his birthday, he got this Panasonic camera and you could use cassette tapes, normal cassette tapes, and you could record shit and then you could plug in the red, white, and yellow in the TV and shit and play it back. So I remember he got it, and I was like, oh, dude, let's go build a fort, and let's put a rope swing up, and we'll fucking swing it, and you can tape me with my balls out and shit, and we'll swing back and forth, it's gonna be awesome. And we brought his camera out, and it was really cool and neat, we filmed a couple things, but we're like, oh, what are we gonna do? Because we weren't thinking about making films or anything like that. But we go to the woods and shit, we have the camera, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. And I was like, wait a sec, I have an idea. And I was like, put that camera on. And I started climbing up this tree, and I remember, now it seems so disturbing and gross, but then we thought it was the funniest thing ever. I'm climbing up the tree, and he's like, dude, don't jump out of the tree, you could hurt yourself. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna jump. I'm gonna dump, and I fucking shat out of the tree. It was so disgusting. I know, it's disgusting, but then we're like, ha ha ha, and he's filming it and shit, and we're laughing, and then we're walking home, and I was like, oh, that was funny, that was awesome. And I was hooked on these firecrackers. They're like, almost like it's like a hot dog in a bag with like spicy juices. And I would eat them every day, and we stopped at Coleman Farms, and I buy one, and I open it up, I'm about to eat it, and I'm like, wait a sec, this looks like a hot dog, and I was like, put the camera on, I give it to my buddy, and he puts it in his zipper and shit, and I get down, I'm like, and I'm going to town on it and shit, and he's filming it, and they're laughing and everything, and then fucking, I'm like, oh, that shit was awesome. We go back to his house, we watched all the shit we filmed, and we're cracking up and stuff. I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna go, man. Fucking, that was awesome. Get rid of that shit. And I leave. Cut to 6-7 weeks later, it's Christmas time. Right? Now I live with my grandma, like I said. She didn't give me a whole lot of presents. She didn't have money, so she'd buy me like a bag of tighty whities and fucking socks, and she always gave me like that sweater with like a wolf on it that glue in the dark and shit. And so anyway, not put it down, it was amazing, but she gave me a few things. So I would open them up real quick and be like, I love you, Grandma, Merry Christmas. And I ran to my buddy's house, and I loved going to my buddy's house because he had two brothers, and they would literally get everything they'd ask for on their Christmas list. And that year, I remember it was fucking really in. We were just really getting into G.I. Joe and Star Wars toys. And I remember his brother asked for the Death Star with the trash compactor, and he asked for the G.I. Joe space shuttle and the G.I. Joe headquarters and all that. And I come over his house and I knock on the door and I come in, and he's filming his brothers fucking opening up the Death Star and the space shuttle, and then he's filming his parents exchanging gifts, and then he gives it to his brother and he's filming them and shit, and he's opening all his presents and they got everything. It was awesome. And I remember all of a sudden he starts fucking being like pouting and shit. I'm like, what's going on? To his brother and shit. He's like, oh, he didn't get the fucking main present he wanted. I'm like, no, look at him, dude. And then his parents are like, oh my God, and they're filming this. And they're like, go open up your stocking. And they open up stocking, and the card in there, it's like a little treasure map. It was really awesome. And he goes to the closet, he pulls out, he got the fucking G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it was this awesome, like 6-foot, fucking aircraft carrier ship, and all the G.I. Joe shit were going. And I'm like, this is awesome, let's go build this shit in your room, bro. We run up to his room, and we start fucking putting it together, and we're slapping stickers on it and shit. And now the other reason I love going to his house is because he always had fucking soda in his fridge and fucking snacks. At my house, I used to have Lipton iced tea. Remember, like the quart of, it was like a can of sugar. You put it in a quart, and you stuck it with some ice and shit. It was like sugar water. Never any soda, no cupcakes or anything. He had the fucking ding dong zebra cakes, all the shit you see at Target and Walmart and shit. Oatmeal cream pies, and then during Christmas there's the white Christmas trees with the sprinkles on them and shit. And he's like, I'm gonna go downstairs, I'll be right back. And I'm like, dude, get some fucking snacks and soda? Yes. And I'm putting the shit on and stuff on the belt and the stickers and all that. And he comes running up after a minute or so, and he's like, oh my God, bro, oh my God. I'm like, dude, don't tell me you don't have any more zebra cakes, bro, no fucking way. He's like, no, it's not that, it's not that. I'm like, what is it, dude? Don't tell me there's no soda. He's like, no, my parents are watching the fucking tape. I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome, that's cute, that's exchanging gifts. They're fucking watching you be a little bitch and shit, that's great. He's like, no, dude, the other tape. And I'm like, no way, bro, not the tape that I said you should erase, right? He's like, I couldn't figure it out, man. I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. I'm never going to be allowed back here again. I'm never going to fucking soda, zebra cakes or nothing. Fuck, what are we going to do? And I'm all fucking nervous. I'm like, all right, dude, look, we're going to run downstairs and we'll run out the door and we'll say we're going to the park. And then we'll go to the park and then you'll come back and you'll vibe it out and be like, oh, how was that sweet Christmas fucking tape and shit, and feel out, see if they're like, oh, that fucking pig's never allowed back here again. Feel it out, and then you can let me know and shit. And he's like, all right, good plan, good plan. And we run downstairs, we go to run out the door, and we would have made it right out the door without him to say anything. And of course, at his house, you had to take your shoes off. So I'm like, oh, fuck, and I'm putting my shoes on. And all of a sudden, his mom's like, wait a sec, boys, where are you going? We're like, oh, we're going to go to the park and shit, we're going to go fool around for a little bit. And he's like, don't worry, Mom, I'll be back for dinner, okay? Merry Christmas. She's like, wait a sec, give me a hug. And she comes up, she gives him a hug, says, Merry Christmas, don't be late for dinner. She's like, you too, Jay, give me a hug. And she reaches over and gives me a hug. And in my ear, she goes, I thought you would suck better than that. His face turned red and shit, I didn't know what to say. Merry Christmas and shit. I was like, oh my God. And we went outside and I was like, oh God, dude. And fucking luckily fucking I went, I was like, I'm not coming back. But when he came back, he calls me up and shit. And he's like, dude. I was like, what did they say? They're like, look, they're a little disturbed. But they said boys will be boys. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So thank goodness, man. And him and I, that dude, honestly, I've known that dude since I was 5 years old, that kid and his mom and dad. I've known him since I was 5. We went to kindergarten together. And even like, after we graduated high school, he met a girl and got married and moved to Texas, and I got married and shit like that. And even if we don't see each other and talk all the time, we've still called each other on our birthday every year since we moved apart from each other. So 40 years, I'm going to be 45 June 12th. Oh my God. 40 years I've known this motherfucker. But anyway, so like I said, man, I've been traveling with this. You know, I actually, when I get back, I get home tomorrow. So we just went to Hawaii, me and the family, dude. It was really actually awesome. It was the first time we've taken a vacation where it wasn't work related because, you know, I've been going on tour with this. First it was Get Old, then it was this. And then we got to fucking go to New Orleans for 2 months to shoot Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Yeah, thank you. It was awesome. So much fun. I can't wait for everyone to see it, man. I already got to see a rough cut of it because Kevin, literally after like 3 days, Kevin starts editing. They give him all the footage from the 3 days, and he starts cutting together scenes. And each day they give him more footage and more footage. And he literally, by the end of the movie, had like almost like, you know, 3/4 of it cut together. And after 2 weeks of being home, he had a rough cut of the full movie with like temporary music and all that. And again, it's all rough. But I got to see a rough cut of the movie, and I'm super stoked. We've had a ton of people that came back from the other movies, and there's a bunch of people, new cameos from new people. I don't know what I could say. I'm leaving it to Kevin because I'm just been so nervous. There's like some secrets of people they don't want to announce yet, and I'm so afraid I'm going to be like, hey everyone, so-and-so's in the movie, and then fucking someone tweets it, and Kevin's like, I saw a tweet saying that you told us. Anyway, because I'm terrified of that. But my point is, there was a lot of cool people. We had a lot of fun and shit. My wife produces, she's produced Kevin's last couple movies. She also runs Kevin's company, Smodco, which does his touring business, his comic, all his like his IMDb stuff, his Weight Watchers. She does all my touring stuff. He does. He's like works for Weight Watchers, and I hope people know that. I think he tweets about it and shit. Yeah. But anyway, she like runs the company and shit. And I mention that because she's like always at the office and tired and shit. So and then we have the 4-year-old Logan. Our kid just turned 4 April 1st, which I mean, she's fucking, thank you. She's awesome. She's such a manipulator and like just goes on stories and stuff. And I'm gonna see, I think I have a video here I want to show you guys. Hopefully, bear with me. But she's so funny because my wife like sends me this video and I'm like, what is she doing? And then like after I hear it, I'm like, oh, she's trying to manipulate you into watching Barbie. So she likes Barbie and she wants to watch Barbie on Netflix, and my wife don't want her watching it. And so she like, I'm gonna show you the video and you'll understand, and then I gotta show you this other video and then I'll go on. Sorry, I should have had this shit planned and ready for you guys, but here it is. So.
No, stop crossing your eyes. What are you saying to me?
Mom, Daddy really likes Barbie. If we don't really watch Barbie, then Daddy will never watch it. He really likes it. She likes her clothes and her sister.
Daddy likes Barbie's clothes?
See, you see, she wants to watch it. My wife's like, no, and she's like, but Daddy loves Barbie. And if Daddy doesn't get to watch Barbie, then he's gonna be mad and upset. So again, it's just so amazing. She sent me that video. I'm like, how crazy that all of a sudden she like went from like saying like, you know, squirrel to like trying to manipulate. And then this, I'm gonna show you this quick video. It was amazing. So anyway, if she does these things very cool, she tells us, but Dad, if you don't do this, it's like already she has that. Like I started pushing like, you know, DCU superhero girls, Batgirls, Star Wars shirts and shit like that right off the beginning, and all of a sudden one day she's like, Dad, I want hot pink only. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, I've been pushing black and blue and Star Wars, and she still likes those. She loves my Legos. She wants to play with, like, my Lord of the Rings fucking, you know, big tower, like the Black Gate, and she's always, like, putting stuff in and, like, telling stories. She's like, I have to go potty. Okay, and she'll be talking about Wonder Woman and shit, and Elsa, she has an Elsa Lego. She'll be like, I have to go potty. She'll be like, okay, I'll be right back. And then she, like, goes on. I remember the first time she did it, she, like, got on the toilet, and she just was like, psst. And then I was like, she's like, Daddy, it's your turn. And I brought Elsa there, and I was like, she's like, looked at me, and I remember the next time, she's like, I gotta go again, and then she was like, it's amazing, it's amazing. So, anyway, I mention all this because, so I've been traveling back and forth, and my wife's like at work, and then the kids, you know, at school. And when I'm home, like I wake up and I bring her to school, and then I pick her up from school, and then we'll play and stuff. And then my wife cooks dinner, and then I give her a bath and I put her to bed. And then I'm on the road for 4 days, and then I come back and forth. So I mention all this because this trip, it's right after we got back from making the movie. I went away. I had to go away for like 5 days on a tour. I get home. And I'm home for about, I get home around 3 o'clock. So at this point, it had been about 3.5 weeks since our last session, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like 3.5 weeks passed. And so I get home and it's at 3 o'clock, and like 30 minutes before I have to pick the kid up, and I'm like, babe, you know, let's get some action going and shit. She's like, it's the middle of the day, I have emails to send. I'm like, fine. I'm like, all right. She's like, maybe tonight. I'm like, all right, great. So I go pick the kid up, and I drop the kid off. We get back home, we're playing, we go to the park and do shit, and then we get back, and then my wife starts cooking dinner, and then we eat, and then I get her ready for bath, and then I read books to her, and I brush her teeth, and I put her to bed. Now, you would think, we put her to bed like 8, and usually I try to, hopefully she falls asleep within the first 20 minutes, half hour and shit, and I'll leave the room. But a lot of times she'll just be like, Dad, today at Show and Tell, my friend Carly, she brought an LOL doll, but she didn't have center stage. I have center stage, and center stage is so much better. And she'll like just keep talking, it's amazing. But she'll, yeah, like, it's time to go to bed, like, stop talking, you know, like, shut your eyes, go to bed. So point in telling you that is like, you know, an hour past, hour and a half. So now, like, finally she's asleep. I go in the room, I'm like, baby, it's time to... I look in the bed, my wife's like, and I climb in bed, I'm like, yo, and she's like, yeah, tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. I'm like, fuck. Now the next day, I'm home for fucking half a day. The next day, I literally have to leave for the airport at like 9:30. So I get the kid ready, I feed her breakfast, get her dressed, brush her teeth, and we're getting her ready for school and shit. And then I'm right about to leave, and I'm like, all right, cool, I can drive her to school, get back, grab my bags, and then I gotta call an Uber to pick me up and bring me to LAX. And so my wife just wakes up, comes out, and she's like, all right, listen, she's like, if you drop Logan off right now, time you get back, you have about 15 minutes before you have to call your Uber. And she gives me a little rub and shit. I'm like, oh, damn. Come on, Logan, let's go! You know? So I get Logan, I slowly get her to school safely and shit. I'm like, baby, I love you. I'll see you when I get home and stuff. And so on the way back, I'm like, get the fuck out of the way! You know, I'm rushing home and shit. I'm like, all right, I got 13 minutes and stuff. And now I don't know about you, but for me, it's not like, now that my brain knows shit's about to go down in the near future, it's not like it's like, Logan! But it's like, you know, like blood starts flowing. Like, I don't know, you guys know, like you walk around normally, it's like soft and it like falls into your leg and shit. But when there's a little blood flowing, there's like a little weight to it and shit. It's like, so I got a little weight going to it. I like get home and shit. I come running in, I'm like, babe, I'm back. And I look for her and shit, and I get in my room and look in the bathroom, and I look, she's butt naked against the fucking sink and shit. Looking in the bathroom, I'm like, oh, you aren't fucking around. I was like, come on and shit. And all of a sudden I see her hand come up, she has the blow dryer. She's putting makeup on. I'm like, what the fuck? You said if I got home, we had 14 minutes and shit was gonna go down. Hurry up, man, I got 14 minutes. She's like, you only need 2, motherfucker. I'm like, so fucking what, man? Give me my 2 minutes, baby. So she's like, just go in your room, I'll be right there. So I'm like, all right, I get it. So I give her a couple minutes, I get in, take all my clothes off, and I jump on the bed. And like I said, there's some weight to it. Now when there's weight to it and shit, I can't help but like fuck around with my shit, because it's like this. And you can do like man kegels where you tighten up and it's... So it's just fascinating. It's like you sit there and it like rocks around and then it falls and then it slowly starts to balance and then so I'm fucking around my shit. I'm like, come on, babe, there's 11 minutes now. She's like, one more minute, shit. So another minute's passed. Now at this point, I've been playing with it so much. It's like hip hip do good. It's like full fucking shuriken. And it's there, and I'm like, all right, man, fuck this. She's gonna like come in 5 minutes from now, and she's like, I'm sorry, it's too late, you know. So I was like, I'm going in for it. So I go in, I start kissing her neck and shit, start rubbing her boobs. Boo, 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 boo. And she's like, I told you I'd come in. I was like, no, we're gonna do it here. She's like, all right, fine. She puts the blow dryer down and her makeup, and I'm like, boo, 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 boo. And I start rubbing her clit. If you guys didn't know, the clit's back here. Anyway, so I'm rubbing, look at these, right? Now I start looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh shit, this will be hot, right? But then my hard prick rubs against her ass and it's all sensitive and I'm like, and I see that in the mirror and I'm like, oh God, that's hard. And then it hits again and I'm like, so I'm like, oh God, I can't look and shit. So I like look and I'm like kissing her neck and rubbing. And now like I'm taller than her, so I have to bend down and shit. And I'm trying to get it in there. And I'm like, she's like, that's my ass, you fucking idiot. I'm like, oh, it's wrong, baby. And at this point already, my thighs start burning and shit. I'm out of shape as a motherfucker. You can hear it right now. I'm out of breath for fake fucking. Right? So my legs, my thighs are burning and shit at this point, but not too bad, right? So I'm trying to get things going, and I'm trying, and I'm like, I know she could just grab it and go, pop, and like, you know, she knows where it is, and goes, hot. So I'm like, can you help me out? She's like, don't be so fucking lazy. I'm sorry, ooh, there we go. Half full, half full, half full, half full, And so I got a little bit of a rhythm down and shit, a little swivel it, right? But at this point, my legs are burning so long, they're like fucking jello now. You know when your legs are burning, you're holding something up and your arms become jello-y, and your legs, so my legs been burning, they're starting to be jello-y and shaking, and she's like, what the fuck's going on? She notices the rhythm goes from half whole to like quarter whole, half whole, quarter. So she's like, my legs hurt, she's like, oh my God, hold on. So she like pushes me away and she sits up on this thing and it's like perfect height and she's like, all right, half whole, half whole. And I'm looking at her, I give her a couple kisses, I'm like, I'm gonna make you come. She goes, no you're not. You're gonna fucking lie to me, baby. She's like, look man, you have about 4 or 5 minutes left. This is for you. I'm like, all right, selfish me as it is. Half whole. And I'm going to town for a second, and she sort of adjusts. And when she leans back, she like puts her hand on something, all of a sudden there. And I'm like, what is that? She's like, don't worry about it, just finish. And I'm like, all right, I'll finish. And then, ho. And all of a sudden, I see her face, she's like, I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I told you were gonna come. She's like, no, my ass is burning! And she pushes me. She hit the blow dryer and it turned on and was shooting heat on her ass. And she fucking started heating up, pushes me. I'm like, I better come now. And I start coming and shit. I come on her foot and her knee and her leg. And then she jumps up, knocks me between the toilet and the glass shower that I'm in. I'm like, oh God. And she's like, she looks down at me, I think she's gonna be like, are you alright? I'll help you up. Instead she goes, you gotta come on me, asshole. And walks out the door. So, that happened. I make it to my flight. I go do a couple shows. A few days go by, 4 or 5 days I think I did a shows and I get home. And now like I said, I've been traveling and from the planes and then the fucking sitting at the airport and I get a rental, sometimes I have to drive 3 hours, do a show, get on a plane, do this and that. Now the reason I say that is because I'm old and I'm out of shape and shit and some mornings sleeping on hard beds, soft beds, fucking this and that. And so sometimes I'll wake up and I'm like, oh fuck. So when I got home, I'm like, babe, I'm gonna go get a massage. There's this cheap massage place down by my house that's like fucking 40 minutes for, $25 or whatever it is. So I'm gonna go get a massage. And I fucking go to my place that I always go and shit. I've been going, like when I go there. So I go there and they're fucking locked. I'm like, what the fuck? They're closed. But luckily, there's 2 other massage places across the street from me. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try this one. And I go over there and shit. I look in. Hey, you have a massage available? They're like, do you mind if it's a man? I'm like, fuck no, I love the cock. You know, but I'm like, no, I don't care, you know, whatever. So up there, man, I go lay on the table. Usually I lay down, I don't get naked, but I'll get in my boxers and I'll lay on the table at this place, my place anyway. And so I'm assuming the same thing here.